Good afternoon, everyone. This is International Master Robert Jamieson from Kids Unlimited in Melbourne, Australia. And today I thought we'd have a chat about how good was Bobby Fischer. And I'll tell you a few little anecdotes about him. Now, it's fortunate for me that I'm old enough to have been around in 1972 when he played his famous World Championship match against Boris Spassky, and chess instantly became popular. It was on the front page of the newspapers, and Fischer and Spassky were on the cover of Newsweek magazine and Time magazine and things like that. And Fischer won comfortably and was widely regarded as the greatest chess player ever. But alas, he became a recluse and never really played again. Ended up getting in trouble with the US government and moved to Iceland and died in Iceland a few years ago. But how good was he? My favourite story, which may or may not be true, is about the British Grandmaster Nigel Short, who of course was one of the best players in the world. He played Kasparov a World Championship match, I think in 1991. So the story goes that in 2001, Nigel was playing some online chess against random people. And he played one opponent, and I think he started E4, and his opponent's first few moves were F6, C6, King F7, King E6, King D6, King C7. Now, if it were me, I would think, well, this guy's a patzer. Let's close the game and move on and play someone a bit better. But Short hung in there and he played on. And would you believe, Black started playing much better, and Short ended up losing against such a pathetic opening. So halfway through the game, he became a little suspicious and he thought, who on earth could I be playing? Who could play this well against me from such a pathetic opening? So he asked the guy whether he knew this obscure Mexican player from the 1960s. And the opponent immediately replied, Siegen 1970. Now, the Chess Olympiad was in Siegen in 1970, and Bobby Fischer had played this obscure Mexican player. So that led Short to think, aha, maybe I am really playing Bobby Fischer after all. So that was a bit of a mystery. Let's move on. So how good was Fischer? Well, this is a bit of a puzzle from one of his games. Fischer is playing white against Benko, who was a Hungarian, then American grandmaster. I think he was even Bobby's second for a while in some of his matches, quite a strong player. And you'd have to say, Fischer is going very well. It's Black's move, but Fischer has two extra pawns. He doesn't have any immediate threats, and Black's got a bit of a blockade. So let's pretend you're Black, you're pal Benko, and you're choosing between three candidate moves. So the candidate moves are Queen E5, Queen D6, and Queen C8. One of these moves, the move he played, is a terrible blunder. So your task is to tell me which move Benko played and why was it a blunder. So pause the video if you like and have a think for a few minutes. Which move would you play for Black? Queen E5, Queen D6, Queen C8. Why was it a blunder? Right. Okay, hopefully you've decided. The move Benko played was Queen C8, question mark, question mark, question mark. All right, now, maybe you didn't play Queen C8, you didn't see the plot, but now that you've seen it, what did Fischer reply? Why was Queen C8 a terrible blunder? So pause the video again if you haven't already discovered it. All right, what did Bobby play? Answer, he sacrificed his queen. Queen E8 check. That's like a wow move. Rook has to take queen. bishop check. And now it's all over. Our king can't move. We have to block with a rook. Check again, hitting the queen. Takes, and we may as well resign. We have no moves, and we're the exchange down on a few pawns. So, very nice finish from Fischer. All right, let's move on again. Okay. All right. Now, I mentioned that Fischer moved to Iceland in his final years, and he's buried in a grave in Iceland. And Iceland, I think, is a country that has more grandmasters per capita than anywhere else in the world. You think of Friedrich Olofsson, who was a candidate and president of FIDE at one stage, plus a number of other grandmasters. I guess it's so cold and boring in Iceland, there's not much to do apart from catch salmon and play chess. So that might explain why they have so many grandmasters. Anyway, they had a chess program on TV back in 2006, and they got to this position. It's black's go, obviously, because white is threatening queen takes g7 mate. So what happened? Black grabbed his king and started to go to g8, and then he realized, oops, queen takes rook is mate. So he put the king back and replaced it with queen d7. Unfortunately for him, the arbiter was watching and said, no, I'm very sorry, you have to play king d8, and the guy played queen g7 mate, end of game. Now, apparently they were taking calls from the public about the chess game, and someone rang up and said that he thought black had missed a brilliant win. Instead of king g8 or queen d7, black has a brilliant win. The first move is fairly obvious, the next move not so much. So let's see if we can find the brilliant win that the caller suggested black had missed. So pause the video, have a think. Black to play, what is the winning line? Right, I hope you've decided. So the first move is fairly obvious. He's threatening mate in one and queen takes rook check and stuff, so it has to be a fairly drastic move. So here we go, let's check him, open up his king. Now, of course, if king takes rook, rook check, and terrible things are going to happen. It's going to be queen g, it's double check, because the queen's checking as well. So the king's going to move somewhere, and it's thanks for the game. Okay, but of course we don't have to take. It's one of the problems of so many weaker players. If you take them, they pretty much always take you back. All right, white can play the more clever move here. And now he's threatening, for instance, perpetual check. Or he's threatening takes the pawn, check, king there, and then knight e7 picks up the queen and stuff. Right, what is black's next move? Pause the video if you like, because it's a pretty cool move here. Have a think. Have you decided? All right. The caller suggested black plays rook h4. So that's opening up the queen on the same diagonal as the king. So white can't now play queen back because rook goes back, check. Queen is now checking the king. Okay, so white is pretty much forced to play f3. All right, what's black's next move? Have a think. Hope you got it. He plays rook g1 check. Now, if the king goes up, we've got queen here check, and it's pretty tragic. So he takes. And now we play queen takes pawn check. Rook blocks, for instance, and thanks for the game. Very nice. Now, what sort of player would be strong enough to immediately see that combination and ring up the TV station? They're pretty certain it was Bobby Fischer. So whilst he may have retired from chess and been a recluse, Looks like he was still following chess and taking a bit of interest in it. So, what do you think? How good was Fischer? In my view, he was still the greatest of all time. His rating was 2780. The next player, Karpov, was like 2720. So he's 60 points above the next player in the world. And he was certainly a formidable opponent. It was just unfortunate that he got a few strange ideas and got a bit paranoid later in life. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed those stories about Fischer and the puzzles, and I'll see you in the next video.